I'm Alyssa, 25. At a family dinner in Maplewood, my sister's fiancé mocked me in Russian while my parents played along, assuming I couldn't understand, but I did. If you were my age, would you stay quiet or say something right there at the table? The evening had that polished suburban calm that feels borrowed rather than earned. Wood floors breathed out the faint scent of wax. The kitchen TV murmured from the corner. A soft stream of headlines that no one was really listening to. The dishwasher blinked its waiting light. A promise of clatter later. Through the screen door. The night carried a faraway hush, the kind you get in a town where tree canopies outnumber street lamps and the turnpike exists only as a distant ribbon of sound. We ate in the way families do when every role is practiced. My mother, Linda, narrated the salad like it was a guest. My father, Robert, asked measured questions, as if taking attendance. Natalie glowed the way fiancés often glow, her ring catching the pendant lamp every time her wrist turned. Dmitri sat at her side. Posture neat, face polite. He was handsome in the tidy way of a man who irons his small talk. My plate held a modest square of baked pasta, steam lifting in calm curls. Forks chimed against ceramic, a silver pulse that kept time with our indoor weather. I could name each sound without looking the ice maker's cough. The scrape of chair legs, the faint thud of someone closing a cabinet with more care than necessary. All of it stacked into the domestic rhythm you learn before you learn your own name. So, my father said, eyes scanning the table. How's everyone doing? Good. Natalie answered quickly, a glint at the edge of her smile. Busy, but good. Dmitri nodded as if co-signing. We've been going non-stop, he said. Vowels rounded by a trace of accent, he usually smoothed out. Across from me, my mother refolded her napkin. Alyssa, you're so quiet. You okay? Honey, I smiled the small, dutiful smile. I'm fine. That was when Dmitri angled toward Natalie. Chin dipped. Voice just above a whisper. A ribbon of Russian loosed into the air between them. The syllables were soft and quick, the kind that hide in polite rooms. My mother caught the tune, not the words, and made a sound that could pass for a laugh. My father's mouth tugged into a grin he might later call neutral. It was the sort of family nod that says, we are being pleasant. The words were not pleasant. There are certain consonants in Russian that land like folded knives, not loud. Just definite. He used one of those now, tucking it into a sentence that, to anyone else, would have sounded like a compliment disguised as a shrug. My ears took it in, sorted the grammar almost by muscle memory, and slid it into meaning. I didn't blink. That is a trick you learn if you have ever decided that knowing more than you show can be a form of safety. Natalie's lashes flickered. She answered him softly, also in Russian, a line that was meant to soften what he'd said, or maybe to move the moment along. She was good at moving moments along. You too, my mother said brightly. You've picked a date yet? Working on it. Natalie said. English again. Bright again. Dmitri added a sentence in the same agreeable tone he used for everyone. Then, to Natalie alone, another ribbon of Russian. This time it curled with a word that means something like simpleton, but carries a domestic intimacy, the kind of word that pretends to be teasing so it can be sharp without leaving marks. The kind of word people aim at women who don't talk loudly. My mother's nod came a hair too fast. My father sipped his water. I cut my pasta and lifted a bite that I knew would be too hot. Because the mouth can keep secrets if the tongue is busy. The light above the table buzzed a little, the way summer bulbs do. The TV in the kitchen announced weather somewhere else. The room kept being a room. It is remarkable how rooms do that, while a different weather starts inside your chest. Work is good, Robert asked, aiming the question at the table in general. Busy, Natalie said again. A safe word for safe people. She was trying to keep the dinner within the lines. It is what she does. What we were raised to do. Dimitri's hand hovered over the breadbasket. And as he took a slice, he let out another small sentence in Russian. Shaped like a compliment. Weighted like a jab. He did not look at me while he said it. He looked at the bread, at the crumbs it made, at his own hand. This is an old trick too. Speak to the air and hope the air carries your meaning where you want it to land. My mother placed an extra napkin by his plate, as if she could pad the moment. Try the sauce, she said. I added more herbs this time. He smiled at her with careful gratitude. Very good, he said. And then, still smiling, added a word in Russian. That means obedient. The sort of word you give to a child or a pet. He aimed it at me. Not with his eyes, but with the angle of his voice. I kept my hand steady. There is a discipline to restraint that feels like holding a plank a second longer than comfort allows. Inside, gears clicked. Not the gears of revenge, that is too loud a word for what I felt, but the gears of alignment. It is a clean sensation when a boundary finds itself. Do you want more water? Natalie asked me, her voice a touch too bright. I'm okay, I said. When I looked up, I caught Dimitri's gaze only for a moment. It flashed. Not with malice. Malice is flamboyant, but with the complacency of someone. Sure, the room belongs to him. He glanced away quickly, left shoulder hitching in a shrug that could be read as harmless. He was careful. He was almost always careful. My father began a story about a neighbor's lawn. His extravagance. The sprinkler timing. The way the light catches grass when the day is almost over. He tells stories like that when the air needs anchoring. My mother reached for the serving spoon, and I watched her watch my face. She didn't know exactly what Dimitri had said, but she knew the pitch of women. Mothers often do. There is a particular silence that is not absence but structure. It shows you where the beams are. The beams. This evening were politeness, the roof, appearance. You can live under a roof like that for a long time and call it home. Manido. I took another bite. Slower now. My fork clinked the plate. A small bell. I let my eyes float over the scene like I was describing it to myself for later. Natalie's ring, the condensation on Dimitri's glass, the fold in my father's cuff, the way my mother's earring caught the same light as the butter knife. Inventory is a way of staying. Another string of Russian slid out of Dimitri. Soft enough to claim it was between him and the air. He liked metaphors that gave themselves plausible deniability. This one compared patience to dullness. It landed on the tablecloth with the weight of a paper, cut small. Real. Designed to be called nothing. I heard it. Filed it. And felt the brief spark of that inner voice that doesn't say, you must, but rather, you could. It is a gentle voice. It is older than my age. Dessert later, my mother asked the room, buttoning the rhythm with hospitality. Sure, Natalie said. We brought something. She reached for a white box near the counter, its ribbon curling into a loose question mark. Dimitri wiped his fingers with a precision that read masculine to people who confuse neatness with virtue. I'll get plates, my father offered, already half standing. I looked at him and thought, kindly, that he had inherited the kind of politeness that repairs surfaces. It is not a flaw. Not exactly. It is a style of maintenance that keeps families functional. Sometimes it cost. I have learned to count that cost quietly. In the kitchen doorway, the TV murmured an update about storms moving along, a coast that wasn't ours. The dishwasher, still empty, waited for our surrender. Summer dusk thickened at the window panes. It would be full dark by the time we divided the sweetness and called it dessert. Natalie smiled at me, a sister smile, complicated and familiar. She wanted the night to stay pretty. I didn't want to ruin it. That, too, is something daughters learn. But I no longer intended to be the prettiest thing on someone else's plate. When Dimitri made a final little comment in Russian, the kind that polishes insult until it looks like a reflection, I set my fork down. Not loudly. Not in the theatrical way people slam silver against ceramic in movies. Just a gentle place. Metal to glaze. The sound of a decision that respects itself. I smoothed my napkin with my left hand and lifted my water glass with my right. The condensation cooled the pads of my fingers, a simple sensation that felt like a reset. I took a sip and let my gaze move. Not to him. Not yet. But to my parents, their faces held a posture that could pass for neutral at a distance. Up close, neutral had seams. There are moments few. Clear when you understand that a room is about to learn your vocabulary. I felt that understanding settle. Painless and inevitable. And like a puzzle piece, finally meeting the picture it was cut from. It's good, I said, meaning the meal. The evening. The fact of family gathered under warm light. And also meaning, I am ready. I placed the glass down, right where the ring of water had marked the table. Mi fingers rested beside it. Steady. Quiet. Unshaking. The TV hummed. The night leaned closer to the windows. The house made the soft, living noises that houses make when they believe everything is ordinary. They thought I did not understand. Good. June sits differently in a kitchen. When the air is careful, the windows are open just enough to suggest generosity. The screen holds back the night. The ceiling fan moves heat in slow circles. Our plates have settled into the second half of dinner. The part where conversation drifts into habit and everyone performs what they know. I have always been good at performing what I know. More salad, my mother asks. Already reaching with the tongs. She's not asking whether I want it. She's asking the evening to keep its shape. I pass my plate and let the leaves slide on with a quiet rustle. We are a family that edits in real time. Natalie tips her glass toward me, in a small sister salute. It is the kind we invented in grade school chin lift. Half smile. Neutral enough to pass for nothing. She uses it now, the way you lay a palm on a skittish horse. I hold her glance long enough to say I saw it. Short enough to say, we will not act it out loud. Across the table. Dmitri folds his napkin with the care of a man who learned etiquette as a language and enjoys speaking it fluently. He leans toward my sister and releases another thin strand of Russian. The syllables cushioned like cotton around a pin. My father doesn't know the words, but he recognizes cadence. His answering is a soft permission slip that he may not know he is signing. Rules of the table have a way of writing themselves when no one takes the pen. Ours were drafted over years of small choices that looked like kindness. Keep the peace. Let things slide. Meet sharpness with a smile and call it grace. If conflict is a storm, then a good family is a roof. That is what we were told. And we believed it because roofs are necessary and storms are scary, and girls are taught to worry about the weather inside the house more than the wind outside it. I learned Russian the way I learn most things. I end up needing quietly, without permission, not because I planned to use it, but because I liked the way the case endings clicked into place and how verbs could change clothes and become precise. Some sounds felt like small stones lining a path. Some felt like doors you could push with a fingertip if you knew how to position your hand. I carried that knowledge like a folded map, tucked away, not meant to prove anything. There were hints, before tonight, of how knowledge becomes leverage without your asking it to. A passing comment at a different meal, months back, that I didn't parse fully until later. The surprised look Dmitri gave when I laughed at a joke he'd told in English and understood better than he expected me to. Nothing you could pin to a calendar. Nothing you could staple to an accusation. Just weather. My mother's earrings catch the light when she tilts her head. The sauce came together this time. She says to no one and everyone. It did. I answer, because some agreements are free and keep the room from unraveling. The pasta is warm and sure. I taste time and something like resolve. Dmitri voice drops. The stage whisper of a man trained to be discreet in public while forgetting that family dinners are not public. The word he chooses for me this time is the sort of word that could be defended as playful if anyone called him on it. He doesn't intend to be called on it. That is the point of a language you believe others do not share. Natalie gives him a small nudge with her knee. I recognize that nudge. I have used its cousins with people I cared about when they started running their mouths downhill. She wants the slope to flatten. She wants the night to be about dessert. My father clears his throat. We should plan the new light fixture. He tells my mother. As if illumination were a joint project they could control. Something simple. Something simple. She echoes. And for a breath, the room agrees. I place my fork down for a water break and look around the space that made all of us. The framed photos along the ledge hold a polite history school concerts. A graduation robe. A family vacation near water, where we looked like catalog people because we were on our best behavior. I remember the feeling beneath each image, the quick math of how to keep everyone comfortable, the way we took turns being the person who swallowed the hard part so the picture could come out clean. Rules of the table: ask about work. Comment on the weather. Compliment the cooking. Avoid the jagged bit that sits in the middle of the plate. If a jagged bit shows, fold a napkin over it and call it presentation. Do you like it here? I asked Dimitri. Meaning Maplewood. Meaning the slow evenings and the way everything shuts down on time. It is civilized, he says. English smooth. And then the private addendum in Russian, a country word for tame. As if suburbia were a field fenced for the sake of men like him. His smile is courteous. His eyes rest on the rim of his glass. The old me would have swallowed the translation and let it pass through like a vitamin, technically helpful. Mostly harmless. Not worth announcing. The me sitting here tonight files it differently. Not because the word is new, but because the game is... He believes the scoreboard is secret. He believes the referee is asleep. He believes that because the room has always protected its peace, it will protect him. My mother offers bread. I take a piece and let the crust crackle between my fingers. Something about the sound, ordinary and final, draws a line inside me. I will not make a scene. I will also not carry his scene for him. Alyssa, my father says, what are you reading lately? This is one of his safe questions. A path through the woods that never leads to the cliff. Nothing heavy. I say, just things that make sense when you read them out loud. It is the truest answer I can give without holding up a sign. Dimitri drops a new phrase in Russian. One of those comparative turns that lift one person by lowering another. The sentence is small but industrious. It builds a table with a short leg so that one place setting wobbles while the others sit steady. He's been doing carpentry like this all evening. My parents don't feel the wobble. They have adjusted to uneven floors all their lives. I think about the first time I understood that families can confuse quiet with consent. It wasn't a headline moment. It was the 1,000th small accommodation. The way women in our line have leaned into courtesy until it curved back on them. We praised ourselves for grace, while our backs learned the angle of someone else's comfort. I am not angry exactly. Anger is a flare. This is a tide going slack at last. You all right? Natalie asks softly. English this time. Her voice aimed only at me. I'm good. I say. And I mean it. She hears the way I say it and turns a fraction toward Dimitri. That fraction is a sisterly weather vane. It announces a change before the rain arrives. The kitchen TV mentions travel delays in a city we can reach in less than an hour and visit only on purpose. The news anchor's calm is a familiar hymn. My mother checks the oven for nothing. A gesture that comforts her. My father refills water glasses he has not asked about. We are all doing the dance that kept us from stepping on toes. Even when some of us were being stepped on. Dimitri ties one more observation into his satin thread of Russian. It is about patience again. But this time, the word he chooses carries a shade of obedience. The domestic kind you assign to women who do not interrupt. He does not look at me when he says it. He doesn't have to. He has learned that some words find their targets without the courtesy of eye contact. I breathe in. The room smells like basil and heat. I breathe out. The heat cools my tongue. The decision that began a few minutes ago stands up and stretches its legs. Not yet. It says, soon. It is an odd comfort to realize that you do not have to prove you understand in order to understand. Knowledge can sit beside you like a friend who doesn't need to be introduced. But sometimes, friendship asks to be acknowledged aloud. Dessert, after we clear. My mother asks. I hope shaped like hospitality. After we clear. My father agrees. Already stacking plates the way he always stacks plates. 2 at a time. Methodical. Careful not to clatter. I help. Because I always help. I lift my own plate, and then Natalie's, set them near the sink. And rinse what needs rinsing. The dishwasher door opens with its usual weight. The rack slides forward. I arrange knives and forks with the same economy I use on my sentences. It calms the air. From the table. Dimitri offers a final aside in Russian. Something about performance and audience. Tidy and smug. As if the night were a stage, he directs. The words are small bones. They will not choke anyone. But they will stick. I dry my hands and return to my chair. Natalie watches me the way you watch a pot you know will boil when it is ready. My mother smooths the tablecloth, finding an invisible wrinkle and pressing it into compliance. My father stands at the edge of the room like a man willing to carry chairs but not conflict. Rules of the table. One more time. Maintain tone. Protect calm. Keep the peace, even if the peace keeps itself by borrowing your spine. There is a difference between silence that cowers and silence that prepares. I have been both. Tonight, I know which one I am. Everything okay, my father asks. The way men ask when they mean. Tell me it is safe to do nothing. It's okay, I say. And let the words hold exactly what they can. Hold no more. No less. My voice is steady. My hands are steady. The night is steady in the false way that rides just before a true adjustment. Across from me, Dmitri smiles without teeth. He believes the evening is his. He believes this because rooms like ours have taught men like him that manners are a shield they can aim outward. I look at the shield and recognize it for what it is. Thin metal that dents. When truth taps it, the ceiling fan keeps its orbit. The screen door shivers once and settles. The dishwasher waits for the load it knows it will receive. All the house's mechanisms, ready to do what they were built to do. So am I. The table looks thinner after plates leave it, like a stage after the props are rolled away. A braid of steam climbs from the open dishwasher, then vanishes. My father stacks dessert plates with quiet industry. My mother aligns forks so their handles form a neat little horizon. Natalie unties a ribbon on a white box, easing it free, as if sound alone could break the evening. We all know the choreography that comes now. It is the safe half hour that follows dinner, something sweet. Softer conversation. The part where people call it a good night and believe they have earned the adjective. I let my hands trace the choreography. I do not let my mind move with it. On the counter by the sink, a glass leaves a wet ring. I set it on a fresh square of towel and watch the circle dull, then disappear. It occurs to me that this is exactly how certain words are meant to behave. Leave a mark only long enough to be denied. He has been counting on that. Small slices, my mother asks. Opening the box. Small, my father says. We've already done enough damage. Natalie laughs. Steadying the lid. You say that every time. Dmitri stands at the edge of the island, hands in pockets. A polished guest in a home that wants to be gracious. He is not reckless. His cruelty prefers cover. He chooses a spot where his voice will be folded by distance and then sends out another sentence in Russian. Half-breathed. Half-smiled. A remark about restraint that manages to grade my silence while pretending to admire it. I don't react, not yet. When you know your moment is coming, you do not spend its strength early. I carry dessert plates to the table, 2 at a time. Then the forks. The fork teeth ring once against porcelain and then settle. My mother follows with small squares of cake, careful corners. Equal portions. Fairness measured in sugar. My father pours water. The pitcher glugs. Then smooths out. So, he says to the table, we've made it through another week. His tone offers the room a landing pad. Barely. Natalie says with a grin. She aims the grin at me. A sister's bridge. Dmitri leans in toward her, cants his head, and in Russian, wonders whether some people confuse quiet with emptiness. The sentence has that thin varnish of irony that makes it easy to deny. It would pass unnoticed in rooms where people only understand the tune. I let my fork rest. I look at him. Not hard. Not soft, just openly. In the way you look at a window when you decide it is time to open it. He meets my gaze for a second, then chooses a crumb to study. The crumb obliges by being small and controllable. Everyone comfortable, my mother asks, lifting the room by its handles. Very. Dmitri says. English smooth. Friendly. Nothing to see. He adds 2 words in Russian that translate to more than comfortable, something closer to satisfied with oneself. I take a sip of water, the cold walking across my teeth. Did you drive in today, I ask him. Plain question. Plain tone. He glances at me, surprised by the direct address. Yes, he says. Traffic was kind. Good, I say, and turn my attention to the dessert. The exchange is unremarkable enough to be forgettable. I mean, for it to be. What I want is not a scene, but a seam. A place where fabric will give when I pull. Natalie shifts in her chair, foot hooking the rung the way it did when we were kids, and waiting our turns. My father slices his piece with the side of his fork. Meticulous. My mother watches all of us with the precision of a hostess, who understands that comfort can be managed like a recipe. Dmitri tries another small string of Russian, an observation about sweetness and appetite that doubles as a comment about self-control. He wears the expression of a man pleased with his own wit. It is quiet. It is not harmless. Do you want coffee? My mother asks him. A reflex of kindness. Later, he says. Then, without moving his mouth much, a final private aside. A phrase that downgrades my patience to a deficiency. That is the seam. I lay my fork down. Not with ceremony. Just alignment. The dishwasher inhales. The ceiling fan answers with its patient orbit. Somewhere outside. A carpas. Insistent, and then gone. The household steady, so I can change. I turn first to my parents because honor. For me. Starts there. I want the first faces that hear me to be the ones that taught me how to be heard. My voice, when I find it, is level. The kind of level you get when a picture is finally straight. May I say something, I ask? My father looks relieved by the shape of the question. Of course, he says. My mother's hands still. Fork midway to plate. I look at Dmitri last. He sits with his best manners on. But his eyes have that narrowed calculation that men wear when they expect to win by knowing the rules better than you do. He believes I will break a rule. I won't. I will use one. I've enjoyed the evening. I begin. Because I have. In the way you can enjoy clarity, even when it costs you. The food, the company, the effort everyone makes to keep things pleasant. Dmitri inclines his head, already preparing to agree. And, I add, I want to be very clear about one small thing. I let a breath come and go. The words choose themselves. I don't need to hunt them. They have been waiting behind my teeth all night. Polite. Patient. Precise. I turn my palm up. An open gesture. And in Russian, simple. Courteous, I say. A line that belongs in any beginning. Good evening. Thank you for dinner. I understand you perfectly. The sentence is not dramatic. It doesn't need to be. It lands with the soft firmness of a key in the right lock. For a second, no one moves. Sound drops out of the room like it has been edited. Natalie's eyes widen. Not with fear, but with that hush you get when a view clears and you see the exact thing you were trying not to drive past. My mother's fork touches the plate and stays there. My father blinks. A slow, careful blink. As if adjusting the focus on a lens, Dmitri's smile holds for half a breath and then misplaces itself. He doesn't look angry. He looks ungathered, like a man who set down an argument and can't find where he left it. I let the Russian settle. Then I translate. Calm and neat. Cutting nothing. Adding nothing. I repeat the phrases he used this evening. The ones trimmed to look harmless. I give them back in English with their edges restored. My tone is factual. Almost gentle. I name no names. I attach no adjectives. I simply put the words on the table where the dessert is, and let everyone see what they've been eating. My father inhales and sets his water down, as if it weighs a little more now. My mother's jaw works. Not in anger. In recognition. Natalie glances at Dmitri and then at me. Somewhere between apology and thanks. Her face, the geography of a sister caught between two maps. Dmitri clears his throat. You, he begins in English. Then stops. Recalculates. You speak. I do. I say, enough to understand what I am spoken about rather than to. Silence locates the corners of the room. The ceiling fan moves air that no one claims. The TV in the kitchen carries on without us. Soft headlines about weather we are not having. I do not offer a speech. I do not request an apology. I let the information exist, where it belongs in public, in the same room as the people who assumed it could be kept private. A boundary is not a lecture, it is a line. My mother reaches for the napkin in her lap and folds it once. Then again, each crease deliberate. I didn't know, she says quietly, the words aimed at me and at herself. I know. I answer. There is kindness available here. I spend exactly enough of it. Dmitri tries on a shrug that would like to be charming. It does not fit. I was joking, he says. The weak umbrella of men who bring rain and call it play. In a language you thought I didn't share. I say, still calm, at a table where we are meant to share. We leave it there. I do not need him to agree with me to be correct. What I needed was to open the window. Fresh air can be uncomfortable for people who prefer perfume. My father clears his throat again. Not to redirect now, but because the body asks for something to do when the mind arrives somewhere late. He lifts his fork and puts it down. He nods once. An adult man, trying not to be a child in front of his daughter. I'd like to have dessert, I say softly. Because routine can be a rope back to shore, and also a way of proving we are still ourselves. Yes, my mother says. And the yes carries apology and acceptance, and the promise of better manners later. Natalie exhales in a way that almost sounds like laughter, not mockery. Relief. She settles her slice in front of her and touches my wrist under the table. The smallest of thanks. Dmitri chooses silence. Which, for the first time tonight, feels like respect rather than strategy. We eat. The cake is sweet and a little dense. The kind you cut with pressing patience. The room learns how to hold a new shape without shattering. I do not look at anyone for approval. I do not scan faces for permission. I have already given myself what I needed. When I finish my slice, I lift my plate and carry it to the sink. Water runs. The steam catches my face and slides away. The dishwasher receives the plate with its small, agreeable rails. I stand there a second longer than I have to, letting my pulse remember that it can idle. Behind me, voices return at low volume. Ordinary phrases trying themselves on. Would you like more water? It's getting warm this week. We should wrap the leftovers. No one mentions languages. They do not need to. The room speaks one now, boundary. I dry my hands and step back to the table. My father looks up and meets my eyes. And something in his face rearranges, not guilt. Not quite. More like the start of a new map. My mother reaches for the dessert box to close it. Her fingers are careful. Natalie leans into her chair, shoulders lowering, as if the air weighs less. I pick up my glass and take a last sip. The ring it leaves is smaller this time. I do not wipe it away. Let it fade on its own. Some marks should be visible as they disappear. Coffee. My mother tries again. Out of instinct. Thank you. I'm all set. I say, this was lovely. And it is. In the way. An honest room is lovely. Not because everything inside it is perfect, but because the light is finally pointed in the right direction. I gather my napkin, fold it once, place it beside the plate. I look at my parents before I look at anyone else. Shall we take a breath? I say gently. And then have a little fresh air. My father nods. My mother nods. Natalie nods. Dmitri does not object. The back door opens with its familiar sound. Night purrs in suburban Kiev. That distant road hum. The soft conversation of leaves. The house exhales. So do I. The reveal my speaking Russian and calmly translating Dmitri's remarks happened at the close of Chapter 3. Chapter 4 continues in the same moment. Holding the silence. Setting the line. And letting the room learn its new shape. The back door was open. The screen holding the night in a soft grid. Air moved through the kitchen in a thread. Enough to cool the heat that rises when truth is finally said out loud. The ceiling fan kept its circular patience. My mother's fork rested where it had landed. My father's hand still touched his water glass as if he had placed it down and then forgotten to let go. I did not fill the silence. I let it stand. A frame around what had been hung on the wall. There is mercy. Sometimes, in not talking right away. Natalie blinked like she had come up from under clear water. Thank you, she said. Small and meant. The kind of thanks people offer when they are briefly led out of a fog into a field. Dmitri glanced toward the open door. Then back to me. His manners trying to find their footing. I did not intend, he stopped, tasting the edge of that sentence. Intent likes to be the hero of its own story. Tonight, it had to stand next to impact and share the frame. You spoke to be understood by one person, I said. My tone even. You were. My mother pressed her napkin into a neat rectangle. A motion that looked like prayer, if you didn't know her. We didn't realize, she said. The words quiet but not small. I know, I answered. Because I did. Knowledge, like steam from the dishwasher, rises and disappears. What matters is whether you feel the brief heat and decide to stop touching what burns other people. The kitchen TV kept murmuring. The anchor's calm, a background hymn. My father reached to switch the volume down a notch. The remote clicked like a throat clearing. He took a breath, to found a place in it where his voice could settle, and said, that was clarifying. It was simple, I said. Understanding is simple. Respect can be. Too. No one argued with that. Arguments require positions. We were all still looking for places to stand. Natalie brushed a crumb from the table's edge. A tiny, grateful ritual. Coffee she tried. A sister's off-ramp to keep us from circling the same patch of road. Later, I said, let's sit a moment. We did. We let the new air move through. The dessert looked suddenly formal, like punctuation that arrives mid-sentence. I lifted my fork again, took one small bite, and set it down. In the ordinary act. There was a lesson. Life can continue without pretending nothing happened. Dimitri's eyes went to the slice in front of him. He cut a narrow corner with the carefulness of a man making precise corrections. If I caused offense, he began. He apologized. The sentence was almost right and not quite. I did not make him finish it in the shape I preferred. I am not a teacher and this is not a classroom. I nodded once. The kind of acknowledgement that leaves room for people to fill their own blanks later. For tonight, I said, let's just agree on this, at this table. We speak to each other, not around each other. In any language. My father's shoulders dropped a fraction, a release he probably didn't feel until it happened. Agreed, he said, and the word surprised him with how well it fit his mouth. My mother glanced between us, then found me and stayed there. Agreed, she added, softer, as if placing a blanket over something that had finally stopped shivering. Natalie looked at Dmitri, then back to me. We can do that, she said, taking care to make. We big enough to include all of us. Dimitri's nod was small. Un adornet. For a man who liked polish, the plainness read as effort. We finished dessert the way you finish anything that has been interrupted by clarity aware, quieter. Grateful for the simple mechanics of chewing and swallowing, and placing a fork down without needing it to ring like a bell. The dishwasher door opened its little mouth. The rack slid forward. I carried plates. Not because it was expected, but because it let my hands do honest work while my mind set shelves in order. At the sink, warm water slid over china. Steam lifted in a thin veil. My mother stood beside me, handing things over. The choreography we both knew by heart. Twice, she started to speak and did not. On the third try, she found her words. I thought we were being welcoming, she said, wincing at the way the word sounded. Now that light had changed. You were, I said. And also, we can be more than welcoming. We can be careful. She nodded, as if cataloging that distinction and putting it where she could find it again. When she turned back to the table, her posture had shifted by millimeters, the tiny kind of change that announces itself later, in better habits. In the dining area, my father straightened a placemat that didn't need straightening. The domestic equivalent of a man retying a rope because it has held. Dmitri stood, hands at his sides, unsure whether to help, to sit, to speak. Natalie gave him a quiet look that said, "Not now, later, with me." He received it. I wiped the counter with a clean square of towel. The circle I made, erasing the ghost of the water ring my glass had left earlier. It had nearly faded on its own. Almost isn't always enough. When I turned back, all four of them were watching me in different ways. My father, as a man, watches the horizon for weather. My mother, as a woman, watches a door she wants to learn how to open. My sister, with the relief of someone who just saw a map unfold. And Dimitri, like a person meeting a mirror, he hadn't expected to be accurate. I did not perform anything for them. I simply returned to my chair, took my place, and set my hands where they had been before. Palms quiet on the table. "Shall we have some air?" I asked, making the question gentle. The night at the screen was patient. It would wait if we needed it to. "Yes," my father said, gratitude hiding inside the syllable. We walked the few steps to the open door and stood where the kitchen's light dissolved into the softened dark. The yard hummed with small living noises, somewhere far off. The hint of highway threaded the silence, a proof that other people were moving through their own evenings. I did not switch on the porch lamp. Letting our eyes adjust felt right. You learn more when you choose to see in the light that exists. Natalie leaned a shoulder against the frame. "I'm sorry," she said. Words meant for me and not meant to drag us back into the kitchen. "I should have. You handled what you could handle," I said. "We all did." Dimitri stood 2 paces back, the screen's diamond shadow crossing his shirt. He cleared his throat, then didn't use it. Restraint. On him. Looked new. He was trying it on. My mother touched my elbow. A brief, steady pressure, then let her hand fall. "Thank you for saying something," she said. 6 simple words that made space. "You're welcome," I said, and meant it without triumph. Justice, when quiet, does not need a trophy. My father shifted his weight. "We should take better care," he offered, building a sentence as if it were a small bench enough to sit on together. "We should." I agreed. A moth tested the screen, found it firm, and left. The night smelled faintly of cut grass, and the day's leftover sun. In the half-light, I could see Natalie's profile soften. Some evenings end with a slam and a sting. This one was ending with a hinge that had finally been oiled. After a few minutes, we moved back inside. The kitchen welcomed us with its humble domestic music, the dishwasher beginning its wash, the faucet ticking as it cooled, the low bench notes of a refrigerator at work. My mother gathered the last of the plates. My father returned the remote to its place, as if that, too, were a way of putting order back where it belongs. Dimitri passed by me on his way to the table, paused, and chose one clean, public sentence. "I will be more considerate," he said. "Not elegant. Sufficient. Good," I said, letting the word end where it ended. The room did not require a handshake or a hug. It required us to live the next minutes in the shape we had just described. So we did. We packed leftovers into containers without naming them. We wiped the table. We refolded the throw on the back of the couch. Small work. Honest work. The kind that keeps peace sturdy, because it is built, not borrowed. When everything that needed doing was done, I gathered my things, a light sweater, my phone from the charger, a hair tie I had set near the fruit bowl. The house had returned to its ordinary heart rate. We were ready for the part of the evening where people say goodbye and mean it. I looked at my parents first. "Thank you for dinner," I said. My words matched the ones I had used earlier in Russian. The symmetry pleased me. "You're welcome," my mother said, her voice steadier. "Drive safe," my father added. Not out of habit this time, but like a wish he understood the value of. Natalie met my eyes and nodded once. "Later," it said. "We'll talk later without urgency, without dread." Dimitri stepped aside to give me the path to the hall. A small gesture. Unannounced. I noticed it. He meant for me to... That was fine. I reached for my keys on the entry table, felt their familiar weight, and closed my hand. The sound they made when they settled into my palm was clear, but not loud. I had no interest in loud. "Good night," I said, and, for the sake of the lesson finishing itself, I added a brief, courteous farewell in Russian, nothing more than sleep well. It was a period at the end of the sentence we had written together. No one flinched. No one pretended not to understand. I turned toward the front door. The porch light, still off, held the dark without threat. Out beyond the hedges, the quiet road waited the way roads do in towns like ours, patient. Reliable. Ready to carry you where you already know you're going. Behind me, the housemaid. The sound houses make when they approve not applause, not a cheer. Just the small, satisfied hush of a place learning better manners. The front hallway held a cooler quiet than the kitchen, the kind that collects in entryways where shoes learn patience and coats keep their stories on hooks. My keys lay calm in my palm, their small weight an honest measure of the night. Behind me, the house-breathed dishwasher steady, refrigerator low. The after music of a gathering that had finally tuned itself. "Take some cake," my mother said softly from the dining room threshold, as if hospitality could sew up a seam. We had just cut clean. She held the white box Natalie had brought, ribbon coiled into a comma. "Thank you," I said, and stepped back 2 paces, so I stood halfway between leaving and staying. Boundaries prefer thresholds. Doors are good teachers. Natalie joined her, one hand under the box, the other nudging the lid into place. "It'll be better tomorrow," she said, meaning the cake. Maybe meaning us. "It will," I said. The words behaved for both meanings. Dmitri lingered a respectful distance from the hall, a posture that looked new on him. His face had learned stillness in the last half hour. Stillness is a language too. It can mean I am thinking, or I am waiting, or I am deciding what to do with the person I told myself I was. He watched without staring. My father came toward the entry table and straightened the small dish that caught spare keys. It did not need straightening. He kept his hand there anyway. Like a man acknowledging the place where people put what they carry when they need both hands for something else. "Before you go," he said, finding the careful tone he uses when ladders are out and the gutter needs attention. "I'd like to say," he paused, "not for effect, but to be right. We hear you." The sentence arrived plain and useful, like a step you can trust. I nodded once. "Thank you." My mother set the dessert box down on the entry table and opened her hands, as if to show she wasn't hiding anything. "I thought kindness was enough," she said. "More to the air than to any one of us. Sometimes I use it like a blanket. Tonight, it felt like a curtain." "Kindness is still good," I said. "Curtains can open." She breathed out, small relief, and folded the invisible cloth into a tidier shape. Natalie touched the ribbon, then looked at me. "I'll talk with him," she said, "and let the rest stay implied, not to defend. Not to punish, to align." She had moved into that precise middle 1,000 times for other people. Tonight she was choosing the middle as a place to balance, not to disappear. "That's between you," I said gently. "Boundaries acknowledge jurisdictions. They do not annex." Dmitri took one step forward. Measured. Public. His voice steady enough to walk on. "I did not respect the room," he said. "I understand that now. I didn't reward him. And I didn't punish him. Some lines do not need applause to stand. At this table," I repeated, "we speak to each other, not around each other. In any language." The sentence fit here. In the entryway. As cleanly as it had fit beside dessert. He nodded. The nod was small but real. He did not ask me to soften the rule. He did not ask the room to rescue him from it. The porch stayed dark. I liked the way the absence of light drew our outlines in honest proportions. In bright light, people perform. In soft dark, they listen. "Your drive," my father asked. "A practical kindness." His voice, finding a path back to the part of caring he understood best. "Short," I said. I'll be fine. We should walk you out. My mother offered. Etiquette, reaching for its shoes. It's okay. I said. Let's keep this here. I tapped the air between us. The small square of hallway that had become neutral ground. Some conversations deserved to end where they did their work. We stood together in that square a moment longer. The house adjusted around us, pipes cooling. Stairs remembering footsteps. Out past the hedges. The road kept its patient promise. I could feel the night ease. Aftershocks are not explosions. They are the body sorting itself. Natalie lifted the dessert box again and held it toward me. Take it, she said. The faintest smile at the corner of her mouth. Proof that something sweet made it through. I accepted the box. It didn't feel like a peace offering. It felt like a receipt. Thank you, I said. I'll have it in the morning. The future, named simply, is sometimes enough. My father cleared his throat. Not to fill silence now, but to make room for words that need a runway. I want you to know, he said, that your mother and I, we didn't protect you well tonight. The sentence wobbled on its feet. Then it stood. He found the second sentence faster. We will do better. My mother nodded. Not as an echo. As an agreement signed with her eyes. I appreciate that, I said. Agreements do not erase what came before. They afford a better next step. Dmitri shifted his weight. For a half-breath. I thought he might volley a defense. He didn't. He folded his hands behind his back instead. That, too, was new. It's late. I told the room. The way you tell a child it's bedtime without making the night sound like a scold. Let's end well. End well. Natalie repeated, as if testing a phrase she could use later. We did the unremarkable things that close a family evening. My mother checked the lock on the side door. My father clicked the kitchen light to a lower setting. Natalie gathered 2 stray glasses and made them not stray. Dmitri stood quiet. Not exiled. Just included under a rule he had finally heard. Then we circled back to the small geometry of goodbye, 4 faces, 1 door. I gave each of my parents the brief, ordinary embrace we've practiced all my life. It landed better tonight because it had nothing to hide. Good night, sweetheart, my mother said. Voice steady. Not performative. Good night, my father said. The word carrying promise rather than escape. I stepped toward Natalie. Touched my forehead to hers the way we used to when we were small and didn't have better rituals. Sleep, I said. It held more than the syllable. She squeezed my wrist in answer. Text when you get home, she said. Then caught herself and softened it into a sister's ask instead of a command. If you want, I will, I said. Not because she needed the message, but because we both liked the thread. Dmitri waited until the family part of farewell concluded. When my eyes met his, he offered what he could offer without pretending to be someone else. Good night, he said in careful English. Then, after a breath, in Russian. Brief and plain, I understand the rule. He kept it that simple. Good night, I replied. Also in Russian. Equally plain. Courtesy is not capitulation. It is a guardrail. I turned the knob. The door opened onto the softer darkness of the porch. Night rose to meet me. Cool and ordinary. I held the dessert box in one hand and my keys in the other. Behind me, the house stilled. No one rushed to add a final line. On the first step, I paused, not for drama, for alignment. Nights like this need a small, quiet click to set them in place. One more thing, I said, looking back into the square of light where they stood. If I'm quiet next time, don't assume it's consent. It might be consideration. Ask. My mother nodded first. Fast. Grateful. My father followed. Slower. Certain. Natalie's mouth shaped a promise. Dmitri bowed his head just enough to count. That's all, I said. And it was. I stepped down and felt the old wood take my weight. The porch held. The hedges made their soft hedge sounds somewhere beyond the street. The low ribbon of highway hummed like a far-off appliance, doing useful work. I liked that comparison. It made the world feel maintained. At the walkway's edge, I turned once more toward the door. The rectangle of indoor light framed the four of them, my parents shoulder to shoulder. My sister slightly forward. Dimitri off to the side without needing to be sidelined. It looked like a family adjusting itself. Small degrees enough to change a view. Text us when you're home. My mother called. This time including my father in the plural and me in the circle. I will, I said again, and meant the larger version. The night accepted me without commentary. I followed the short path to the driveway. The kind suburban stretch that has watched 1,000 arrivals and 1,000 departures without keeping score. Gravel whispered under my step, in a language that requires no translation. At my car door, I set the dessert box on the roof and took a breath that went all the way down. The breath brought me back my own weight, returned clean by the air. I placed the box on the passenger seat, tomorrow's sweetness already promised, and closed the door with the soft thud suburban nights prefer. Through the windshield, I could see the front door still open to the screen. Their shapes moved, then blurred, then steadied. No one was arguing. No one was tidying the moment into something. It wasn't. The house looked like a place that might sleep well for the first time in a while. I didn't start the engine yet. There was one more quiet habit I needed to keep letting endings end. I sat, hands on the wheel, and let the hallway scene settle into memory where it belonged, filed, labeled, retrievable, without running the day again. When I finally turned the key, the dashboard's soft glow stepped forward like a considerate usher. I backed out slow, checked the mirror, checked it again. Not because I doubted the space behind me, but because looking back with care had become the way I wanted to move. At the end of the driveway, I paused for the nothing that always looks left and right in our town. To the left, the road bent toward other porches. To the right, it opened toward the routes that meet the turnpike in the world. I chose right, not as a symbol, as a path. As I rolled forward, the house slipped out of the mirror's frame. It reappeared once, smaller, and then gave itself to the dark. I felt the click again, the one that says a chapter has ended exactly where it should. The drive home was short enough to feel like a cool cloth. Street after street gave me back ordinary sights, porches that keep confidences, hedges trimming themselves into evening, mailboxes with flag arms lowered for the night. When I parked, the quiet recognized me, the particular quiet that knows your footsteps and waits on the other side of your door. Inside, I left the dessert box on the kitchen counter and set my keys in their dish. My apartment held the kind of order you can reach for without looking, a lamp you can find with a hand, a chair that accepts you without asking for posture. I turned on one light, no more, and let the room decide its own shadows. The day had been a room with too much furniture. Now I wanted space. I filled the kettle and set it on. Not because tea solves things, but because steam can keep a person company, while water considered its future. I drew the curtains to that almost closed place that lets in the suggestion of night but keeps the street from seeing you think. The window glass pressed back the summer air. Somewhere outside, a neighbor's wind chime remembered a single note and then forgot it again. On the bookshelf, a small framed photo leaned in its usual spot, a picture from years back in the same house I had just left. All of us arranged in the good clothes faces wear when a camera is nearby. I wasn't angry at those people. They were doing their best with the map they had. Tonight, someone drew in a missing road. That is not a betrayal. It is maintenance. The kettle began its low pre-whistle murmur. I chose a mug, the one with a hairline crack that has never grown, and poured hot water over a bag that promised calm. Promises aren't contracts, they're directions. I sat on the couch and held the cup between my hands until the heat became invitation rather than warning. My phone buzzed on the table, a short message from Natalie. Home. Just got in. I typed, all right there. There was a pause long enough to travel across a hallway. Quiero. She wrote. Then, after a moment, thank you. I stared at the word and let it be exactly itself. Sleep. I sent back. Talk when you want. Not before. A second buzz. Deal. I set the phone face down. The room welcomed the return of silence. The cup warmed my palms in a way that felt like agreement. Across from me, the curtain edge waved once, then went still. My mind, which had been in parade formation for hours, stood at ease. The body knows before the brain does when a boundary has held. Breath finds new rooms. I thought about the sentence I'd chosen at the table. Simple. Courteous. The kind of sentence that opens a door instead of banging on it. I could have said more. I didn't. There is a difference between a victory and a standard. I was after the second. Standards are furniture. You live with them. The phone buzzed again. This time, my mother. Not a call, a message. Which was mercy for both of us. We love you. I watched the words a while, remembering the rectangle of light in their entryway. The way my father's hand rested on the dish for spare keys, like he was learning what hands are for. My reply found its own even temperature. I know. Me too. Sleep well. 3 dots arrived. Hesitated. Left. No paragraph followed. In our family, restraint takes practice. Tonight counted as practice. I sipped. The tea did not taste like peace. It tasted like warm water, made honest by leaves. Outside, a car rolled past with the hush of someone trying not to wake people. The clock on the bookshelf took up its small begoed, steady work of splitting time into swallowable pieces. I let the evening play back once. The way you rewind a movie to the scene where the plot finally tells the truth about itself. I remembered Dimitri's careful diction. The clipped consonants that had presumed safety. I remembered the exact weight of the words I returned to the table. My voice, walking them out into public. I did not add music to the memory. I did not need to. There is a fatigue that comes after you hold a line. It is not collapse. It is simply the bill for using muscles visible and not. I stretched my legs out on the couch and watched the ceiling for a while. The paint's flat calm. The hairline in the corner that never widens. Just reminds. Houses keep their own small truths. So do people. The phone buzzed a third time, my father. Late for him. Proud of you. It said. That word had never been casual from him. He reserved it for finished sheds. Fixed faucets. Hard-earned test scores. He had always treated pride like a power tool used carefully, or you'll hurt someone. Thank you. I wrote. I followed it with nothing. An exclamation point would have made the sentence do tricks. I wanted it to stand still. I thought of Dimitri then. Not with anger. With accuracy. Not every man who is clever is unkind. Not every unkind man is hopeless. Tonight. He had tried a sentence. I could respect. I will be more considerate. That is not absolution. It is a promise to test later. I didn't need to mark the date. Life would take attendance on its own. Steam rose from the cup. Ribboned into air. Disappeared. I set the mug down and went to the window for a moment. Looking through the thin seam, where curtain met glass. Streetlights did their complicated mercy too bright. Too dull. Never quite right, for anyone. A fox crossed the far end of the block, as if making its own quiet rounds. The world was walking itself to bed. I sat again and picked up the frame with the family photo. I studied the part of my face that has always looked like my mother's, and the part that belongs only to me. I thought about the women who raised us to be kind, and what it costs to add careful to kind. The cost is not always high, the receipt is long. I used to think you had to choose between peace and honesty. You don't. You choose your sequence. Tonight, honesty went first and peace followed. Not the performative kind that requires everyone to lie in matching tones, but the working kind that can share a table with dessert and not curdle. The phone stayed quiet. My body didn't. Small tremors of energy moved out through fingers and toes. The sort that show up when adrenaline leaves and dignity remains. I breathed with them and watched them go. In the corner, the chair that holds my jacket leaned the way it always leans. I thought about how many rooms like this exist on a night like this, rooms where someone sits alone and considers whether speaking was worthwhile. I wanted to tell all of them, there is a silence that is not surrender. And there is speech that is not war. The tea cooled. I finished it anyway. A kind of courtesy to the work it had tried to do. I rinsed the cup and set it in the rack. The domestic punctuation mark that means, I'm done for now. When I turned off the lamp, the dark did not feel like a wall. It felt like permission. I crossed the room and paused at the hallway habit, asking me to check the lock, the stove, the windows. Everything was what I had left it. After a night of rearranging, that steadiness felt like a gift. In the bedroom, I didn't bother with bright light. The softer setting drew honest edges around familiar things. The book waiting on the nightstand. The small dish for rings I don't wear. The pair of shoes that never learned to sit straight. I washed my face. The cool water introducing my skin to itself again. In the mirror, I looked like a woman who had said exactly enough back in the living room. I cracked the window 2 fingers width to let the night trade air with mine. A ribbon of outside slipped in, carrying a scent that could have been cut grass or memory. The curtains lifted and settled like a breathing animal. One last buzz. Natalie again. He heard you. I smiled at the screen and didn't type back. Some messages ask for echo, some want a shelf. I put this one where I could see it when I needed it and turned the phone face down. I stood at the window until the room, and I agreed we had done enough for one day. Then I closed the gap in the curtains, clicked the lamp, and let the apartment go dim. The city beyond our town would still be awake. The turnpike would hum like a distant beehive. My street had already chosen sleep. In bed, I thought of the table where the evening had bent toward its proper shape. I pictured my mother's careful hands, my father's small nod, my sister's relief finding a place to sit. I pictured Dimitri's face learning what it looks like to meet a line and not step over it. I did not rehearse what I would say next time. There doesn't have to be a next time to justify a boundary. A boundary justifies itself. As my eyes settled, I returned for a moment to the word my father had sent. Proud. I decided to let it be here. In the room. Like a new piece of furniture. Useful. Well built. Not flashy. I imagined it against the wall near the window. A bench. For the days when the world expects you to stand too long. Sleep came the way. Good things sometimes do without speech. Without spectacle. With the steadiness of a promise kept. This chapter steps back a few minutes to the moment before I pulled away on the driveway. Under the porch's softer dark. The screen door clicked behind me with the small sound doors make when they keep their promises. Porch boards took my weight, then handed me down to the walkway. Air met me cooler than the house. Plain spoken. Hedges held their green like a secret. The dessert box balanced against my hip, the way a book does when you know you'll actually read it. I was halfway to the car when the porch light stayed off on purpose, and the screen gave one more whisper. Natalie came out first. The soft shape of her face, finding mine in the yard's diluted light. Dimitri followed. Measured distance between us. As if the evening had taught him how many steps. Respect requires. I'll walk you, Natalie said. Voice low enough to keep the night intact. You don't have to, I answered, already slowing, so she could. I want to, she said. And the want was simple. Gravel underfoot gave the usual soft commentary. Out beyond trees. The far thread of highway hummed like a patient machine. We moved the way people do when they've said most of what needs saying and are willing to let the body finish the sentence. At the hood of my car, I set the dessert box on the roof. Keys rested in my palm, cool. Ordinary. Honest. I looked at my sister first. You, okay? I asked. She nodded. Then shook her head. Then settled somewhere in between. Better, she said. Clearer. Clear as kind, I said, even when it stings. Dimitri stood 2 paces back. Hands unoccupied. Posture formal, in a way that felt borrowed from a better version of himself. He didn't look at the ground, and he didn't search my face for a softer edge. He kept his eyes where truth lives, level. I would like to say something, he said, careful with each word, as if he had finally decided English deserved precision too. I waited. Not to grant permission, but to give space. In the house. He began. I used a private language as a shield. He paused. It was not brave. The admission sat between us. Compact. Well made. Natalie's gaze moved to me. Is that enough? It asked, without asking. It's a start, I said. The rest is what you do with a room when everyone understands you. He nodded once. Silence folded around us. Not empty. Just full of the small work of adjusting. A night breeze pressed the leaves into a hush. A moth discovered the porch screen, approved of its structure, and left. I will not do it again, he said. The sentence had no ornaments. It didn't need them. Good, I answered. Where I stand? Plain promises are easier to check later. I let the later land without threat. Time tests everything. I do not need to. He took a breath, as if preparing to carry something properly for the first time. You spoke with grace, he added, searching for the right noun. Not to win. To set. He gestured slightly to the space between us. As if the rule itself occupied air. Exactly, I said. A standard holds even when no one is watching. Natalie shifted so that the three of us formed an open angle rather than a line. Families function better. I've learned. When people stop trying to stand in front of one another and start learning how to stand beside. I'm not asking you to like me, I told Dimitri. I'm asking you to talk to me directly. Cleanly, especially when it would be easier not to. He considered that. Head tipped. This I can do, he said. And if I'm quiet, I added, repeating what I had left in the hallway. Do not assume it is consent. Ask. I will, he said. Next time, I will ask. His face did not perform remorse. It held a working sincerity that looked new on him. Natalie breathed out. The way a room exhales. When someone opens a window, I'll hold us to that, she said, including herself in the contract on purpose. Fair, I said. It's your house too. In the ways that matter. We stood for another long breath. Somewhere down the block, a dog announced a raccoon with board authority. The night answered with the usual municipal patience. Above us, the dark carried its business without spectacle. Dimitri looked toward the porch, as if to acknowledge the people inside who couldn't hear us. Your parents, he said, are good. Tonight, they will be better. It was not flattery. It was observation. They're learning, I said. We all are. He nodded. Then, in Russian brief, courteous, without embroidery, he said what he had tried to say in the entryway and almost managed, I understand the rule. And I will keep it. The Russian wore no smirk. It didn't ask to be clever. It behaved. I replied in the same language. Just as brief. That's enough for tonight. Courtesy, on its best days, is simply accuracy with manners. Natalie touched my sleeve. The old signal for, we're okay enough to stop for now. Text me when you're home, she said, softening the request with a small smile. I will, I said, because I already knew I would. We didn't hug there in the driveway. Sometimes ritual can make a truth look staged. Instead, we stood together for one more beat and let the cool settle on our arms. Then I reached for the dessert box, slid it into the passenger seat, and closed the door with the suburban hush that belongs to cars that know their neighborhoods. When I straightened, Dimitri stepped back one pace, clearing my path, because clearing paths had, finally, occurred to him. Good night, he said in English. Plain, as a porch step. Good night. I returned. Drive safe when you head out. Small well wishes do not cancel large lessons. They make room for them to stay. Natalie lifted her hand. Palm open. He lifted mine. We didn't slap or clasp. We just matched shapes for a second, like a child's game we hadn't played in years. It was enough. I got in, set my hands on the wheel, and let the quiet settle once more. Through the windshield, I could see them standing side by side. Not aligned like soldiers. To just present, like people who had decided to stand where the air was honest. The screen door sighed again. Inside, the house kept its hum. I turned the key. The engine offered that soft beginning sound that never startles. I checked the mirrors because care is a habit worth keeping, even when no one is watching. The backing lights painted the walkway pale. I eased out, At the street, I looked left, right, then left again. The old drill that makes small safety a kind of prayer. I caught one last square of the porch in the side mirror, Natalie and Dmitri, a pair of quieter outlines. The front door left ajar a few inches like a lesson, not finished but understood. I took the turn toward the road that meets the routes that meet the turnpike. Not as a metaphor, just as the way home. Tires hummed their ordinary hymn. In the rear view, the house shrank to an idea and then to a memory with good edges. Everything that needed to be said had been said in the room, on the threshold. And here, where people say what they mean, because the night makes echo a little kinder. I did not feel triumphant. I felt correct. There is a difference. The difference lasts longer. Ahead. Streetlights space themselves like commas, pause. Continue. Pause. Continue. I followed their grammar, sentence by sentence, until the town gave me back to the road that led to my apartment and to the quiet chapter that would follow. Morning unfolded without ceremony, the way good mornings do when a house has slept. Light came in clean, making rectangular arguments on the floor that no one contested. I stood at my window and watched the day take attendance, a runner passing with the easy cadence of habit, a dog leading its person with purpose, to the mail truck easing past like an apology for last week's noise. I poured water over grounds and let the kitchen make its small weather. The smell climbed and settled. Not a jolt. A nudge. I sipped from a plain paper cup because today I wanted the feeling of leaving, even if I wasn't going far. On the counter, the dessert box waited. Corners, neat. Promise intact. I cut a modest square and ate it standing by the sink, tasting the ordinary sweetness of a night that had chosen to be better than it began. My phone blinked awake with 2 messages, simple. Un adorned. From my mother, coffee later this week. From my father, call. If you need anything around the place. No exclamation points. No overcorrections. Just 2 adults offering the kind of presence that doesn't require a scene. I answered both with the same word, yes. I dressed for the day with the unhurried care of someone whose calendar had not changed but whose mind had. Jeans. A soft shirt. Shoes that remembered my feet. I tied my hair the way I do when I expect nothing dramatic and am willing to be surprised by quiet. Before I left, I rinsed the cup, closed the box, checked the lock, and drew the curtains to the level that tells a room. I'll be back. The street greeted me with June air that had not yet become an argument. Birds negotiated the morning without consulting us. A neighbor waved from a porch, as if we had agreed to wave forever. And perhaps we had. I got into my car, placed the box on the seat, and let the engine find its breath. The dashboard's soft glow stepped forward like a good host. I drove the long way out of Maplewood, not to avoid anything, but to collect what the town looked like when it wasn't trying to impress. Front yards made honest attempts at symmetry. Children's chalk drawings from yesterday had weathered into new maps. The library steps wore the scuffs of every choice ever made to sit down and reconsider. I let the car idle at a stop sign. No one contested and watched a bicyclist signal left with a precision that felt hopeful. My phone buzzed in the cup holder. A single line from Natalie, breakfast soon. I pictured her in the kitchen at our parents' house. Hair pulled up, setting a mug down, with the care of someone learning a new set of moves. Soon, I typed at the next light. We'll pick a place that listens. A small smile found my face and did not demand more attention than it deserved. The road curved toward the route that meets the routes that meet the turnpike. I did not need the highway this morning. I needed the portion of it that exists. As a reminder, other lives running in parallel, other dinners. Other rules being written or unwritten by people practicing their best manners or their truest ones. I thought about Dmitri without trying to edit him. He had said the right simple sentence and had not decorated it. Today, that was sufficient. I would not spend energy writing his next line for him. The world would give him many chances to demonstrate whether the promise he made belonged to him. That is not my job to supervise. My job is to keep my boundary in working order. At a gas station on the edge of town, I pulled in not to fill a tank but to honor a ritual. I bought a second paper cup of coffee, the kind that tastes like a plan, and stood by the car while morning shifted shades. A man in a work shirt nodded at me. I nodded back. In the distance, traffic murmured its municipal hymn. I touched the lid of the dessert box as if it were a note I had written to myself. Remember that sweetness can coexist with firmness. The messages from last night rose in my mind and arranged themselves like a small, tidy shelf. Proud of you. My father had typed with no excess. Just the clean weight of the word. We love you. My mother had sent. He heard you. Natalie had said. None of those lines asked me to fix anything. They acknowledged the shape of the room and trusted it to hold. I drove again, letting every green light feel like permission instead of luck. The town thinned, trees stepped back, the sky lifted higher in front of me. I passed a sign with arrows pointing toward places I could go, and felt something in me, the point true north, toward what I had always wanted, and finally named respect without translation. Words from last night returned in their unbolded font. We speak to each other, not around each other. In any language. It had sounded like a rule when I said it. This morning it felt like architecture. Rules sit on paper. Architecture carries weight. There was a time, not far behind me, when I would have argued with myself that quiet victories don't count, standing in my kitchen with a fork in my hand. I heard the evening tell me otherwise. Quiet is not the absence of power. It is the discipline that keeps power from turning you into the thing you stood against. Boundaries built in quiet do not need a parade. They need upkeep. They need you to notice when a hinge squeaks and oil it before the door learns to stick. At a light where the town hands you to the county, a car beside me played a song a little too loud for morning. It didn't bother me. People announced themselves in many keys. I looked ahead and thought of my parents behind their own windows. Making breakfast. Moving chairs. Learning that kindness can be more than a blanket. It can be a backbone. I pictured Natalie and let the image sit, her speaking directly to the person she chose. Not to defend. Not to win. To set. Sisters take turns carrying each other. Carrying the room. Carrying nothing but their own names. It would be her turn soon to do less carrying and more walking beside. That thought felt like relief. My phone stayed still. I liked the silence. Not everything needed acknowledgement today. Some things were better served by ordinary hours, doing ordinary work with the dignity of people who know what they can control and what they must simply meet. I turned onto a road lined with low shops that open when the sun asks politely. A woman swept a sidewalk. A man rolled up a gate. Two teenagers joked in a language I did not know. Laughter, proving fluency more efficiently than any dictionary. I smiled at that. Not every language has to be mine for me to honor it. The rule is not speak my way. The rule is speak to me. By the time the road curved me back toward home, the coffee had cooled to the kind of temperature that reminds you to finish the thought you were thinking. I parked, carried the box upstairs, opened my door, and let my apartment greet me with the small pride of a place you maintain. I set the dessert on the counter and the coffee by the sink. I washed my hands, not to remove anything, but to mark the day as begun, at the table. I wrote 3 short notes on a pad I keep for grocery lists and unexpected truths. 1. Silence is a tool, not a cage. Use it or put it down. 2. Ask what someone means before you decide what it means about you. 3. Respect is the only language that never needs translation. I tore the sheet free and slid it beneath a magnet on the fridge. It looked at home there. A quiet instruction manual for a life I could actually live. The rest of the morning asked nothing dramatic of me. I watered a plant that had learned my schedule. I opened a window 2 fingers width and let a new piece of air come in. I placed the dessert into a container for later and thought about sharing it with Natalie when we met for breakfast. The both of us laughing at our old habit of declaring sweets better the next day to justify patience. Before noon, I sent 1 more message small. Sufficient to the group thread. My parents forget they love. Thanks for last night. Next time, let's keep the conversation in the room with all of us. That worked. 3 dots appeared. Then 3 brief replies. My mother, yes. My father, yes. Natalie, yes. Please. I put the phone face down and listened to the apartment breathe. Outside, the day had gathered itself into steady usefulness. Inside, I did the same. The story wasn't about triumph. It was about alignment. The table would be there next time. And so would I. Speaking directly, leaving space, asking when silence appeared, whether it meant consent or care. I would not assume. I would not whisper around a person and call it polite. When I finally stepped back out for the errands the day had owed me since morning, I locked the door behind me and caught my reflection in the glass, nothing dramatic. Just a woman who had set something where it belonged and could now carry lighter things. The hallway was the same hallway. The steps were the same steps. The difference traveled inside me, the way light travels across a room, when a curtain is opened, the right amount. I took the stairs and, at the bottom, pushed into the day. The air met me like a handshake. The town continued its patient grammar pause. Continue. Pause. I matched it, sentence by sentence. Moving forward with a rule, simple enough to remember, and strong enough to hold speak to people. Not around them, in any language, at any table. Story 2. We were frosting cupcakes at the kitchen island when Mom typed, "Change of plans," into the family group chat. I was lining blueberries in a perfect ring. 20 candles waited on the counter. 2 playlists queued. Paper lanterns hung from the porch. It was simple and sweet the way I wanted to turn 18. Then my sister Sable thundered down the stairs in sunglasses and a robe like a moody celebrity and said, "If I'm miserable, nobody gets a party." She meant it. She always does. The storm that morning had shut down half the flights on the East Coast. Sable's girls' trip to Miami posts pre-drafted. Outfits bagged was postponed. She declared the universe had wronged her personally. Dad and Mom tiptoed. I kept quiet. I've learned the rules in our house. Sable's feelings set the weather. The rest of us carry umbrellas. Before o'clock. The driveway should have been full. Instead, the only vehicles were ours and the neighbor's dented sedan. At 5. The caterer texted Dad for a gate code. Dad replied, "Event canceled, client ill." Client. Like I was a booking. I didn't see the text. Not yet. At 6. I redid my eyeliner and waited by the front window. I kept scanning the streetlights, pretending each passing pair of headlights belonged to friends. 7 sharp. The living room was still silent, except for the fish tank pump and Sable's sighs from the sofa. "Where is everyone?" I asked. Mom's mouth twitched. "We told them not to come?" Lena. "Why?" Sable peeled off her sunglasses. "Because I'm grieving." "Obviously." I laughed. Short and mean. "Because what else was left? You're grieving a beach." She stood. "You think it's funny that I spent 6 weeks planning content around this, that my brand depends on reliability. You have a brand." Lena. Dad cut in. "Low. We thought it would be insensitive to celebrate when your sister is in distress." Insensitive. I stared at the dining room. 20 place cards. The banner looped in a neat arc. I'd made it myself last night. Punched holes. Threaded string. Measured spacing with a ruler. The word 18 looked like it was apologizing to me. "You canceled my birthday without telling me." Mom attempted a soothing tone. "We told everyone you had a migraine, so they wouldn't bother you with messages. You lied about me being sick so I wouldn't find out you canceled my party." Sable's voice sharpened. "You're being selfish. You've always been like this." "I've always been the quiet one. The list maker. The designated driver. Even before I had a license. My name is Lena Quill. And in my family, I'm the responsible one. Translation, the discardable one. But something in me cracked then. Not loud clean. Like a glass with a hairline fracture. Finally giving up. "No." I said. "I'm done." I grabbed the banner and yanked. The tape popped. Letters flipped. Something tumbled across the floor. Sable gasped like I'd kicked a puppy. Dad started. "Lena." The doorbell rang. Nobody moved. It rang again. By reflex. I walked over and opened it. Cold air spilled in. On the porch stood my grandfather, Harlan Quill, in a dark coat. Hair neat. Eyes tired in a way I hadn't seen since Grandma's funeral. "Evening," he said. "Happy birthday." "Kiddo." He handed me a small box wrapped in brown paper and twine like a parcel from another century. Then he looked past me into the house and registered the toppled banner, the untouched food, the stunned faces. What happened? Sable plastered on a smile. Grandad, we were just… Don't, he said, without raising his voice. He's the only person Sable can't charm by blinking. I wasn't going to hide it. Not anymore. So I told him. I started with the storm, the canceled flights, the if I'm miserable, nobody gets a party, the migraine lie, the empty driveway. I said all of it simply. Like reading a grocery list you're finally throwing away. By the time I finished, Grandpa's jaw had gone tight. He turned to Dad. Gavin. Dad spread his hands helplessly. We were trying to keep the peace. At your daughter's expense. Grandpa's voice didn't get louder. It didn't have to. Again. Sable rolled her eyes. Oh, please. I'm the one who got hurt here. Your trip is delayed. Sable. Grandpa said. Lena's milestone was erased. Mom tried the gentle approach. Harlan. We misread the moment. We were protecting Sable's mental health. She's been under pressure with her work, and her work is videos about skincare. I said. The pettiness in me was visiting. Wearing glitter. Grandpa put a hand on my shoulder and squeezed once. I'm sorry. Lena. He looked back at my parents. I'm also sorry for assuming the monthly support I've been sending was helping you do right by both girls. Dad blinked. Dad. You knew he was sending money. I looked at Mom. For how long? She colored. A while. The brown paper box in my hands felt heavier. Grandpa went on. Calm as a winter road. Stipends. Mortgage help. Business bridge loans. The party budget? 2. You asked me for it 2 weeks ago. You said. It would mean the world to Lena. His voice softened just enough to make it hurt. It does mean the world to her. And you canceled it to tiptoe around an adult daughter's sulk. I'm not sulking. Sable snapped. I'm spiraling. Grandpa turned to her. You are 24 years old and perfectly capable of surviving a rescheduled vacation. Silence. Except for the fish tank and my heart punching my ribs. Grandpa took a breath. I won't be sending another $1. Dad stepped forward fast. Dad. Wait. The shop? I said what I said. Grandpa looked at me again. Lena. Get your things. If you want, you can come with me tonight. The room tilted, then steadied. Are you serious? As a heart attack. He looked back to my parents. She's been carrying this family's weather long enough. Mom's face did something brittle. You can't just take her. I'm not taking her. I'm opening my door. She'll choose. I chose. I walked upstairs with my phone buzzing in my hand as messages pinged in from numbers that had stayed silent all day. I ignored them. In my room. The string lights hummed softly. The dress I'd planned to wear still hung from the closet door. I stripped. Folded it. Laid it in my duffel, like a small ceremony. I grabbed my toiletries. My journal. The photo of Grandma and me feeding the ducks when I was 5. I hesitated over the box Grandpa had given me. Then, slid it into the side pocket. Downstairs. Dad was talking quickly. Promising changes. Mom was crying quietly. Sable had retreated to Instagram. Angling her phone for the light to catch in her hair. All that practiced sorrow. When I reached the foyer, she stepped into my path. You're actually going. She sounded less angry than bewildered. Over this, I said. And everything that taught me to accept this. She scoffed. You love being the martyr. Then, stop giving me material. She moved like she might grab my wrist. Grandpa's eyes flicked to her hand. She dropped it. We stepped into the night. The storm had blown out, leaving the sky scrubbed and cold. The neighbor's porch owls glowed solar green. The paper lanterns on our porch swayed a little. Stubborn and useless. As Grandpa drove. He didn't say much. The wipers squeaked twice at a leftover mist and fell silent. The town slid by in familiar snapshots, the hardware store with the pink ladder out front, the diner with 7 kinds of relish lined in little jars, the car wash whale mural I painted in 9th grade. Still missing a fin because I had to leave early for Sable's pageant rehearsal. Breadcrumbs. All the tiny stories that add up. I should have come sooner. Grandpa said finally. To the party. To you. His hands tightened on the wheel. I saw things. I excused things. I told myself. They're young parents. They'll learn. They didn't. That's on me. I didn't know what to do with that. So I pressed my forehead to the cold window and let the night hold my hot face. After a while, I found my voice. Thank you for showing up. Always, he said. From now on. Always. We reached his cottage by the inlet cedar shingles. A wind chime made of old keys. A porch swing that moaned like a friendly ghost. Inside smelled like lemon oil and coffee. He set my duffel by the guest room and nodded toward the kitchen. There's stew on the stove. And cake. I figured your mother would have cake. I was wrong. Let's save the cake. I said. I want to open your present first. We sat at the table. I peeled back the paper. Inside was a small wooden box with hinges smooth as thought. I opened it. Nestled in blue, felt lay Grandma's locket. Inside, 2 tiny photos. Her on the left, me on the right. Taken at the duck pond day. On the back, a new engraving, LQ, choose your weather. Happy birthday. Lena. Grandpa said. I cried then. Because of course I did. Not the big ugly kind. Quiet tears that tasted like relief. My phone lit up with messages I didn't open. The last one previewed on the lock screen from Mom. We never meant to hurt you. We just knew you're stronger. There it was. The family motto. Written like a compliment. You're strong. So you can take it. So we can give it. I clicked the phone off and slid the locket chain over my head. The metal warmed against my skin. I wish I could say that was the end. That the door closed and the new life began clean. But families don't let go easily. And old patterns don't unlatch without a fight. The next days brought apologies with strings. A confrontation I didn't expect. And a truth I never asked for, but can't unknow. Tomorrow, I'll tell you how the messages turned into a trap. Who walked me home when Sable waited outside the school gates. And what Grandpa admitted that changed the way I understand my own beginning. I woke up in Grandpa's guest room to gulls and the clink of a spoon in a mug. The locket warmed where it had settled at my collarbone. The house smelled like lemon oil and cinnamon. For the first time in months, my chest didn't feel like a clenched fist. Grandpa slid a mug toward me. House rules. He said. 3 of them. You eat. You sleep. You don't apologize for taking up space. I smiled into the steam. I'll try. Don't try. He said. Do. My phone lit the table. 32 unread messages. The newest was from Mom. We're sorry if you felt overlooked. Come home, and we can plan something small, no noise. No, people. So Sable isn't triggered. Apology with a landmine. I muttered. Grandpa lifted a brow. That word if is where the trap lives. I typed back, thank you for the apology. I'm safe here. Please direct communication through Grandpa for now. Seconds later, Sable chimed in, you're embarrassing us. Fix it with Granddad. He's being dramatic. I locked the phone and slid it face down. At school, people kept asking if my migraine was better. I let them. It was easier than explaining weather systems inside a family. Maya found me at my locker with a grape soda and a look that said, Spill. Maya has been my anchor since 7th grade. We met at a science fair when my volcano refused to erupt, and hers flooded the gym. She's the kind of person who brings snacks to every conversation and remembers your exam days without checking a calendar. I heard Storm. I heard new party. I heard Sable. She said, which one broke you? All of them. I said, but I'm okay. You don't have to be brave to impress me. She bumped my shoulder. You need a ride after last bell. I'm walking to Grandpa's. It's close. Then you're not walking alone. said Rowan from the next locker down. Rowan is a head taller than everyone and built like a tree trunk. He's the validator in my life. The friend who points at the pattern you've been making excuses for and names it. Sables posted 3 stories with the caption, "Betrayal." I don't like it. I'll be fine, I said. You don't have to be. Maya countered. The last period bell rang. We spilled out with everyone else. Outside, the air smelled like wet asphalt and pretzels from the snack cart. That's when I saw the silver SUV idling half a block down. Tinted windows. Glossy. Familiar. Sable leaned against the hood in a camel coat and white sneakers. Eyes hidden again. She looked like an ad for perfume called Suffering. Rowan swore under his breath. Stay on the main sidewalk. Cameras everywhere. Hey. Mouse. Sable called when I was close enough. Mouse. The childhood nickname that used to feel like sugar and now tastes like chalk. We need to talk. Alone. I'm not going anywhere private with you. I said. Whatever you have to say it here. A junior named Ari slowed her bike. She knows everything that happens on our block before it happens. Want me to stay? She asked lightly. Sure, Rowan said, stepping a half pace in front of me. Public is good. Sable's smile tightened. You've poisoned him against us. Too cute. I kept my hands in my pockets. What do you want? Mom can't eat. Dad hasn't slept. The shop could go under. She widened her eyes like a stage actor. If you love them, you'll talk to Granddad and tell him you overreacted. I didn't overreact, I said, and it's not my job to fund a business that forgets I exist. She laughed once. This is because of a cake. This is because of everything that made the cake make sense. Her gaze flicked to my locket. He gave you that, of course he did. She stepped forward, hand lifting, like she might touch it. Rowan moved. Don't. Back off. Redwood. She snapped. She looked at me again. Fine. You want conditions, we'll give you one. Come home quietly. Apologize publicly for the scene you made last night. I didn't make a scene. I left. And stop turning Grandpa against the family. Do that. And we'll plan a makeup dinner next month. Private. No guests. So I get a secret birthday, if I behave. I said. Sable's voice thinned. Or stay with a bitter old man and watch Mom collapse. Don't weaponize her. I said. It's lazy. Ari's bike wheel clicked faintly where she'd put a toe on a spoke. The sound was tiny and sharp, like a metronome behind Sable's performance. A gull cried overhead. Car brakes sighed at the corner. Sable's control slipped. You think you're special because a storm canceled my trip. She took a step closer. You've always been jealous. Of what I asked? The way they made you the sun and told me to be grateful for the shade. She lunged. It wasn't dramatic. Just fast. 2 fingers hooked the chain at my neck and yanked. The clasp bit my skin. Rowan's arm came between us. Solid as a beam. The chain didn't break. My breath did. Let go. Rowan said. Make me. Okay, he said, and peeled her hand off like removing tape. He didn't hurt her. He didn't have to. He's annoying that way. Sable stumbled back. Cheeks blotched. You hit me. Nobody hit you. Ari said. Very cheerful. Like narrating a cooking show. Her phone was in her hand now. Camera open. But your hand went for her necklace. On video. Sable's face froze for a second. Then she smoothed it. You're not worth this, she told me. You never wear. She slid into the SUV and slammed the door. The car purred away. My throat burned. I hadn't realized I'd been holding my breath until it hurt to let it go. Shaky Maya asked, appearing with 2 napkins and a chocolate cupcake that she swore she didn't plan. Even though the frosting matched my dress from last night, maybe a little. Rowan scanned the street like a bodyguard in a movie. Send the clip to Harlan. He told Ari. Time stumped. Cloud backup. If they try anything, we like receipts. Ari snapped a salute and pedaled off. Rowan walked me to Grandpa's porch. Before I went in, he said, "You don't have to do this alone ever again." "I hear you," I said. Saying it out loud made something in my spine unknot. Inside, Grandpa listened without interrupting, jaw working. When I described the locket grab, his hands curled on the table. "We're calling Deputy Rivera," he said. "Not to press charges. To make a record. Paper trails. Keep bullies humble." He dialed. The conversation was brisk. When he hung up, he went to the den and returned with a fireproof box. He set it down between us and spun the combination. "There's something else," he said. "You deserve the truth. I should have told you sooner." My breath went uneven again. For a different reason. He lifted out a thin folder and a photograph. The photo showed my mother 8 months pregnant. Hair a mess. Smile brave. It was dated 2 weeks before I was born. He slid the folder to me. Inside were forms with stamped dates and lines filled in with careful blue ink. Application for voluntary relinquishment. Prospective adoptive placement paperwork. A letter from an agency. A hospital note. In the margin, a name I didn't know, Baby Quill. Pending. "I don't understand," I said. Though I did. "They planned for 1 child," Grandpa said softly. "Then life said 2. Your mother's parents, good people, insisted the second was a blessing. They died suddenly. Your mother broke for a while. Your father panicked. They made a plan I couldn't abide." His eyes found mine. "Your grandmother and I refused. We told them, if you won't keep her, we will." They relented. They resented. That poison seeped into everything. The room tilted again. The keys on the wind chime tapped the glass door like fingers asking to be let in. "So they didn't want me," I said. The words, plain and terrible. "They didn't know how to want you," he said. "There's a difference. It doesn't excuse a minute of how they treated you." I closed the folder. The locket felt heavy. Then right. Pieces I'd been carrying without names slid into place and locked. "I'm not going back," I said. "I didn't ask you to. But I am going to test them," I said. The idea had been forming all day. Tooth by tooth. Not because I want to return. Because I want proof of who they choose when nobody is watching. I'll set a boundary they can meet only by treating us as separate adults. If they can't, that's their confession. Grandpa didn't smile, but his eyes warmed. "What boundary? If they want me under their roof?" "Sable moves out first. She's 24. She has a job. If they can't choose fairness for once, I have my answer." "That's clean," he said. I typed the message. It felt clinical to write. That helped. I hit send and set the phone down. We had a stew. We split a slice of the saved cake. We watched the inlet darken to ink. At 9. My phone buzzed again. "Dad, we'll discuss and get back to you." "Mom, this is cruel. Sable home is mine." I muted the thread and went to rinse dishes. Through the window. The porch light threw a soft circle onto the steps. Moths battered themselves at it. Frantic for brightness. Unable to rest. I recognized the feeling. Before bed, Grandpa knocked on my door. "One more thing," he said. "If they escalate, we escalate calmly. We let fact speak. We don't trade insults. Lawyer rules. Life rules," he said. "Sleep." I tried. I dreamed of a house where every room had a different weather. In one, it rained confetti that dissolved in your hands. In another, there was wind, but no sound. In the last, the air was clear, and still, morning would bring their answer. And something even stranger. A message from an uncle I barely knew. An offer that wasn't a gift. And a video I never asked to exist, lighting a fuse I couldn't put out. Morning came gray and quiet. The gulls argued over nothing. The locket lay warm against my skin. I checked my phone with that small dread you get before a test. 3 messages waited. "Dad, we considered your condition. It's not realistic. Families don't evict each other. Mom, we can't punish Sable for a tantrum. Be reasonable and come talk. Sable home is mine. Period. I set the phone down like it might crack the table. Grandpa poured coffee and didn't comment. He slid the sugar closer. That was his comment. Before I could answer, a number I didn't recognize buzzed my screen. Uncle Theo. We've met twice. He lives 2 towns over. Owns 3 car lots. Speaks in deals. Theo heard. There's drama. I'm buying in as a silent partner to keep your folks afloat. You can relax and stop the protest. Family sticks. I read it twice. Anonymous investors. I said dryly. How convenient. Grandpa raised one eyebrow. Theo called me last night. He said he'd solve the problem if I stayed out. I suggested he invest on the condition they make amends to you first. He hung up. Their new plan is to remove the need for me. I said, their new plan is to avoid accountability. He corrected. I typed to Dad. Thanks for deciding. I'll stay here. Please don't contact me directly again. Emergencies can go through Grandpa. To Mom, boundaries aren't punishment. They're clarity. To Sable, got it. Theo chimed back. Don't be dramatic. Kid, they fed you for 18 years. I didn't reply. I've learned silence is an answer. At school. Whispers ran ahead of me. People had seen Sable outside the gates yesterday. They'd seen Rowan block her hand. They'd seen me walk away. High school surveillance is better than any camera system. Ari rolled up on her bike with a grin and a warning. Heads up, she said. Someone else filmed the end of your sidewalk scene. It's on a local T account already. Comments are spirited. My stomach dropped. I hadn't wanted this online. We kept Ari's clip private on purpose. Who posted? Guy from tennis. She said. He thought it was wild. He tagged Sable. It's got 20,000 views. Rowan appeared like he always does, when I forget I need him. We can't control it now. He said, but we can control our part. No public statements. No subtweets. If they smear you, we post the facts and stop. Maya squeezed my arm. I hate that this is content. The funny thing is, I said, yesterday, I wanted people to notice me. Today, I want to disappear. By lunch, Sable had posted 3 stories, a black square with betrayal, a crying selfie with vague captions about toxicity, and a shot of her wrist with a faint red line. She didn't say I caused it. She didn't have to. Her followers did the math they wanted. Comments flooded my DMs. Some kind. Some not. One stuck like a thorn. You stole her grandfather. The logic made me wince. It's how our house always worked possession, masquerading as love. I muted everything. We ate fries in the band room, with the door propped. The radiator hissed like it had a secret. Maya split a granola bar, exactly down the middle. Which is one of the million reasons I trust her. Do I need to worry about going to my parents' place for the rest of my stuff, I asked. Not alone. Rowan said. Not with tension high. Bring me. Maya said. I'll label boxes like a drill sergeant. I smiled. Deal. Grandpa texted me a photo after last bell, the folder from last night. Now, joined by a small black notebook. Caption found more. Come home. At the table. He opened the notebook. The cover was cracked. Inside were columns in Grandma's tidy script dates. Amounts. Notes. A private ledger. It's your grandmother's, he said. She tracked gifts so she could keep things fair. You know how she was. I ran my finger down the page. $10 to Lena for field trip. 10 to Sable for art supplies. 50 to each for birthdays. Then, 3 years ago, the balance shifted. Clinical support, written next to Sable. Monthly. Next page. Personal growth retreat. Sable again. Travel stipend for brand building. Sable. My column grew sparse. Books. Duffel for camp. Sneakers. Guilt pricked. Not because I'd had less, but because I'd swallowed my want so often, it felt normal. Grandpa watched my face. I didn't see this while she was alive. He said, If I had, I would have asked questions. I missed it. It explains why they forget fairness so easily. I said, they've had practice. He nodded once. This isn't ammunition. It's perspective. Use it if you need to remember. You're not imagining things. Before I could answer, my phone lit up. Dad again. We'll be at the shop after closing if you want to talk like adults. No drama. Your uncle will be there. Let's resolve this before more damage is done. 2 hours. An empty store. Theo. Every instinct in me said no. Another instinct, the one that hates running, said, go. With witnesses and eyes open. Rowan didn't hesitate. I'm in. Maya grabbed her tote. I'm bringing a clipboard. Lawyer rule. Grandpa said. We don't go without an additional adult. I'll come. We meet in public area. We don't enter offices. We record audio. We send our location to Deputy Rivera. Is that overkill? I asked. It's preparation. He said. Overkill is bringing a flamethrower to a candle problem. We're bringing water. We ate quick. I changed into jeans and my boots. The sky turned pewter as we drove. The shop sat at the edge of the industrial park, where the river bends a squat building with bright flags and a cracked asphalt lot. Outside, wind chimes made of cutlery clinked like distant bells. Through the glass I could see Mom at the counter. Hands folded tight. Dad stood behind her. Yef said. Theo leaned on a display of phone chargers like he owned oxygen. Sable was there too. Of course. In a hoodie with the hood up. Hair tucked. Camera ready sad. Grandpa parked where the dash cam would see everything. He turned to me. Last chance to change your mind. I'm done changing my mind for them. I said. We went in. The bell over the door chimed a cheerful lie. Dad started with the voice he uses with customers. Thank you for coming. He looked at the others. Let's keep this civil. Theo flashed a salesman's smile. We're all family. Sable sniffed. Some of us remember that. Grandpa nodded once at each of them and said nothing. He took a seat where he could see exits and mirrors. I stood next to Rowan and Maya. Back straight. Hands steady around the strap of my bag. Dad gestured to a table between racks of cases. Let's sit. We'll stand. Grandpa said. We won't be long. Theo spread his hands. Here's what's happening. I'm covering their shortfall. In exchange? I'm advising strategy. Step 1. End the social media circus. Lena. Post a note saying you overreacted and you're taking time offline. That lets Sable's narrative cool. Sable's eyes cut to me. It's not a narrative. It's my truth. Grandpa's mouth twitched. The only sign he'd heard that sentence too many times in courtrooms. Dad jumped in. If you do this, we reset. We'll plan something small for you. Will. No. I said. I'm not negotiating my story to save your optics. Mom's voice shook. We're drowning. Your grandfather pulled the rope. Help us stay back. Grandpa didn't pull anything. I said. He stopped pretending the rope was air. Theo's smile thinned. Then here's my counter. If you won't fix the online mess, sign a short statement saying you're choosing to live with Harlan by preference. Not because of abuse. We'll keep it private. But if things escalate, we'll need it. Rowan exhaled hard. There it is. Is this a non-disclosure about my life? I asked. It's protection. Theo said. For everyone. Grandpa stepped forward. Finally. His voice was soft steel. She doesn't sign anything. We're done. Dad frowned. You can't keep inserting yourself. I'm her guardian tonight. Grandpa said. And her witness, and the only adult in this room offering her safety without a price. I felt heat behind my eyes. I didn't want it to show. My hands found the locket like a habit and steadied. Sable shoved her chair back. If you loved us, you'd stop hurting, Mum. If you loved me, I said, you wouldn't set the terms as my silence. The room buzzed faintly, the refrigerator in the back room. the fluorescent lights clicking. The low hum every shop has when you're quiet enough to hear it. That's when the bell chimed again. Deputy Rivera stepped in, hat tucked under his arm. Expression neutrale. Evening, he said. Got a call that there might be a volatile family meeting happening? Thought I'd swing by. Grandpa didn't look at me. But I knew. He'd sent the location, like he said. Rivera's presence changed the air. The performance drained out of Theo's smile. Sable slumped harder into her hood. Dad put both palms on the table like it might ground him. We were just leaving. Grandpa said, "No." Mom blurted, then bit her lip. I mean, please. Just 5 minutes. Let us give Lena something she left. She stepped behind the counter and lifted a small gift bag with tissue paper. Harmless. Normal. The kind of bag you get from a nice candle shop. She held it out to me with 2 hands. Eyes wet. It's yours, she said. No tricks. Every nerve in me said don't. But the room was watching. Rivera's gaze rested on the bag. Then my face. Calm, but alert. I took it. It was heavier than it looked. Inside, honor tissue, was a velvet box. Not Yevelry. Too large. I opened it. Papers. Copies. A flash drive taped inside the lid. My name and my mother's handwriting on the top page. Dated last winter. What is this? My voice sounded far away. Proof, Mom said, of our side. The fluorescent light hummed louder. Or maybe I finally heard it. The gravel outside crunched under a new set of tires. The sky in the window looked bruised. I closed the box. I didn't know yet what I'd find on that drive. I didn't know my mother had been building a file, or that a video I hadn't seen would sit on it like a spark in dry grass. We walked out with Rivera beside us. The bell chiming our exit. On the sidewalk, the wind tasted like metal. Grandpa's hands were steady on the wheel when we left. At home, I set the velvet box on the table like a bomb and stared. Tomorrow, I'd open it. Tomorrow, a sound. I thought I knew my own voice would come back to me from someone else's phone. And the truth I'd been circling would stand up and turn around. I didn't sleep much. The velvet box sat on the dresser like it had gravity. By morning, the whole house felt quiet in a different way. Like sound was waiting. Grandpa set his laptop on the kitchen table and wiped the screen with his handkerchief. Eat first, he said. I ate half a slice of toast. My stomach argued. The locket felt heavier than yesterday. We plugged in the flash drive. The click was small, but I swear I felt it in my ribs. A gray window opened. 4 folders. Photos. Medical. Financial. Context. I heard the key wind chime tap the glass door. The inlet outside was flat as paper. I took a breath and opened financial. Receipts. Screenshots. Transfers from Grandpa. Transfers from Uncle Theo. Credits to content travel. Brand retreat. Wellness seminar. Notes in Mom's handwriting. We'll make it up to Lena later. Sable needs this for stability. Tell Dad to ask Harlan nicely. Grandpa didn't speak. He just put a legal pad between us and wrote dates in a neat column. He underlined the day of my canceled party and drew an arrow to a transfer labeled Event Budget LQ. Below it, a second transfer trip delay comp S. Twice the party amount. Same day. My throat went tight. I clicked back and opened medical. Scans of forms. One letter stood out. Postpartum psychosis resolved. Another grief-induced depressive episode monitor. A note from a family therapist. Parents report splitting older child fragile. Younger resilient. Risk parentification of younger places night rind. A highlighted line in the margin. Do not offload stabilization duties onto adolescent. The ink might as well have been a flare. There it was. In black and white. A stranger had warned them years ago. They'd read it. They'd kept going. Grandpa nodded once. Tight. Save a copy, he said. Cloud and Drive. I clicked context. Grandpa and I opened a folder, packed with audio and clips names typed in a rush. Call, birthday. M4A. Kitchen, 8 p.m. Mauve. Shop, talk, Theo. M4A. The last one was dated last week. Start with the birthday call, he said. Mom's voice filled the room. Warm. Practiced. Little Lena has a sudden migraine. Doctor says dark room. No screens. Please don't text till tomorrow. Underneath. The faint hum of our fish pump. Then Sable's whisper. Say sudden. It sounds more serious. Click. We played kitchen, 8 p.m. Mauve. The phone was propped by the coffee maker. Tilted. It saw me ripping down the banner. The doorbell rang. Mom's face wasn't sad, relieved. Pause. Grandpa said. In the quiet. Dad whispered. Thank God it's Harlan. He'll fix it. Mom. If he cuts us off, Theo can step in. The door wasn't for me. It was for leverage. Shop, talk, Theo. M4. A confirmed it, cups clinking. Slick voices. Theo, she's leverage while she's under your roof. Mom, I can get her to apologize if we frame it as protecting me. Theo, people eat fragile mother. It sells. Facts now. Grandpa said, we saved. Labeled. Timed. Then garage, 12. Mauve Sable pacing. You promised if I hit numbers by spring, you'd talk to him about moving her out. Mom, we can't force her out. We can make her uncomfortable. It's easier if she leaves mad. Photos. Then a lone file vid. Grandma. Mauve. Grandma on the porch. Wind chimes soft. Bird. I see you. Doing the lists isn't love. It's training. Your mother broke. Your father got lazy with courage. Your sister got greedy for safety. None of that is yours. If you need a place, go to Harlan. Choose your weather, even if they call you selfish. We built a record folder. Printed a timeline. Deputy Rivera read it all. Don't post. Don't threaten. If they smear you, answer once with documentation. Then go quiet. That night, a gift bag arrived, a thumb drive raw. Use wisely. Clinic, odd. WMA. Week before I was born, stranger. You're certain about relinquishment, Mom? Yes. Dad, I don't know. Grandpa's hand on my chair. They only stopped when we said we'd take you. I wrote a statement and booked a glass room at the library. Neutral space. Witnesses. I slid pages across the table. I won't be your weather anymore. 1 year, no contact. Emergencies, through Harlan or Deputy Rivera. Therapy, if you want a future. We signed. We left. Aunt Leah handed me a tin lunchbox and a map to a storage unit, Grandma's journals. A draft for the weather fund. A small check. To a letter. Build the dry ground you needed. By fall. The fund helped a kid named Ren buy a lock and a lamp. Mom later sent a short note therapy. 2 months. No, asks. I kept my name Quill. I stood by the river and held the locket. Choose your weather. When did you learn the difference between leaving and being left?